So let's move on to why. Why is building effective communication systems so important? In all of my learning that I've done with trying to get increased buy-in for interventions or trying new things, um, I've learned that we really need to make sure that everybody understands the why. So I want to spend a little bit of time really going over this, because as you start to try to build robust communication systems in your schools, you are I can guarantee you, you are going to get some pushback. And if you can help everybody understand why this is so important, that buy-in is going to definitely be greater. So a large percentage of adults with complex communication needs do not have consistent access to appropriate AAC devices, and as a result have limited means to participate in their daily lives within their communities. So we know, when I was thinking of this slide originally, I had gone through a day, and obviously this is definitely not what my day has been like at all this week. But when I walked through a day a couple weeks ago, it started with me yelling at my daughters to stop moving like sloths so I wouldn't be late for work. On the way to work, I used unaided communication to wave a person through a four-way stop as we stood at a standstill. I went through the McDonald's drive-through and ordered a coffee. I delivered a package to UPS and needed to communicate a delivery address. I answered the phone to respond to a question from a teacher. I replied to an email from my boss. I texted my husband to pick up milk. I called the doctor's office to schedule an appointment. We use communication throughout our days, and it's very multimodal. If you can imagine having no access to an AAC device to participate in any of those things, how difficult would that be? 91% of adults with severe intellectual and developmental disabilities do not have access to AAC and have no means to participate within activities of their daily living. So 91% of the students graduating from our special ed programs with complex communication needs potentially cannot communicate. To me, this is really an unacceptable statistic, because this is our job. And we often have these students from the age of 3, oftentimes for 18 years of their life. We really have no excuse to have this many individuals with disabilities graduating that have no meaningful communication system. 77% is the number of individuals with multiple disabilities who do not engage in any type of community activity, largely due to communication difficulties. If we think about our daily routines and schedules, what are some of the community activities that you participate in, and how important is that to your emotional health and to your social networking? I think right now we're all feeling very isolated. So imagine feeling like this all the time and not being able to participate in a lot of those activities because you can't communicate. Up to 90%, that's the number of students with complex communication needs who enter adulthood without acquiring functional literacy skills, which undermines their educational achievement, their employment options, their social networking, and their access to independent living. So what I want to do is move to a video of Dr. Karen Erickson. She's one of the leading researchers in literacy, and she's from the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and the Center for Literacy and Disability Studies. This clip of Karen Erickson is from the Communication Matters conference, and Toby Dynavox posted it, and Karen gave me permission to use this within the webinar, and I would highly recommend, it's linked into all of your slides, that you go back. It's it's the keynote speech from that conference, and it's about an hour long, and it's just really phenomenal. But this is just a little snippet that kind of goes back to that last statistic that we just talked about.
But what I've learned through the years is that you can't do AAC without literacy. You will never be able to say everything you want to say, when you want to say it, to whomever you want to say, if we do not teach you to read and write. You will always be dependent on the words that someone else decided were important to put on your device. You will always be dependent on other people's ability to interpret your intended meaning. If you don't have the ability to communicate through writing.
So Dr. Karen Erickson talked about this concept of spontaneous novel utterance generation. The acronym that's commonly referred to in the AAC world is SNUG. And the goal of SNUG is to have the most effective interactive communication possible. We want everybody to be able to say what they want to say, when they want to say it, and to whomever they want to say it to. And if you have a communication system such as this one down here, and you only have 4 choices, are you really going to be able to have that spontaneous novel utterance generation? ASHA has some guidance and talks about SNUG in this document. I'm not going to click on it, but I am going to talk about it, and the link is there for all of you to look at. But they talk about this having SNUG and why that's so important. And we know from looking at language samples that when we are looking at what individuals with communication systems are actually saying, that they're rarely using pre-stored messages. So in the past, you probably maybe, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, we commonly saw a lot of AAC systems that had a lot of phrase-based communication. So we were programming in phrases, and the student would, say the whole phrase, I want fruit snacks, please, rather than using the system to say out each one of those words, to say each one of those words. But what the data shows us and the research shows us is that these pre-stored messages are rarely used. Log data shows that they're used less than 2% of the time. Also in that ASHA document, they cite some research out of Australia, and they talk about how they had SLPs try to predict what employees in a sheltered workshop would say during a break time conversation. And those SLPs were less than 10% accurate. This is all important because we are not good at predicting what people want to say. So we know that if we want individuals to say what they want to say, when they want to say it, to whomever they want to say it to, they have to have some form of literacy skills. We know that less than 5% of individuals with complex communication needs are employed. So I'm just going to pause a minute and let that one sink in. Less than 5% of individuals with complex communication needs are employed, and that's largely due to a lack of functional literacy skills. So we really, really need to be not only working on communication, but also developing emergent and conventional literacy skills in students with complex communication needs. We also know that the research tells us that a total of 45% of adults with complex communication needs report that they have been victims of crime or abuse. 71% of these individuals have been victimized multiple times, and 97% knew their perpetrators. The majority had no effective way to communicate these experiences. We know that they are often safer among strangers. So I'm going to switch now to another video from Gail Van Tatenhove, who's done some amazing work with a language system called MinSpeak and has made really some fabulous contributions to the field of AAC. A fun fact about Gail is that she is actually originally from Wisconsin, but lives in Florida now. And she gave me permission to use this video in the webinar too. She shares in my urgency to make sure that everyone knows and hears this information. And the gentleman that you're going to hear from in this video is John. He has since passed away, but Gail had shared that he definitely saw this as one of his legacies. So I'm going to go ahead and play the video for you and let Gail and John do most of the talking because I think this video speaks volumes.
Hi. Wait. More. I wait more.
Well, John, you've told me quite a story. Why don't you hit speak display so everybody can hear the whole story? Thank you.
It was time to eat. I wait and wait. No one there. No one comes. I afraid no one here will help me eat. I wait more. He come and say to me you don't tell. He beg and read. He go away. I wait more.
Well, I'm glad you could tell me about it. Is there something you need me to do to fix it? You can take care of it yourself. Excellent.
So just to kind of summarize that why, we know that individuals need to have some form of communication to just be able to participate in their own daily lives, to participate in their communities, to be employable. They need to have literacy skills, again, to be employable and to have that spontaneous novel utterance generation, which is also really critical for their own safety as well.